Today we'll focus on the decision-making process related to accessible educational materials and look closely at how each of these steps requires planning on the part of the individualized education program team. Included in this presentation is an introduction to the AEM Navigator, an online tool developed by the AEM Consortium and made available on the National Center for Accessible Educational Materials website. The Navigator is a process facilitator that contains in-depth information to support and guide decision-making at every step of the process. There are 3 steps that teams can take to ensure students receive their accessible materials in a timely manner. 1. Establish need by means of comprehensive evaluation. 2. Select specialized formats needed by the student for educational participation and achievement. Start the process to acquire needed formats in a timely manner. We have a publication that goes into great detail about this process on our website under Forms and Resources. Determination of need. In this step, the team thinks about whether the student can 1. Read and gain information from the standard print-based materials used by all students. 2. Needs the materials in a specialized formats, or 3. Needs modified content or alternative material. If the student is able to understand the content presented in textbooks and other related core instructional materials that are used by other students across the curriculum, but is unable to read or use them, the student will need another way to get the information contained in the printed materials. In this case, the student may need specialized formats of the curriculum material. Specialized formats include Braille, large print, audio, and digital text. Detailed information about these specialized formats was provided in the previous Part 1 session. Some of the types of information that can be used to help the team make a decision about the need for specialized formats include, but not limited to, reading level, including formal and informal reading diagnostic information, indications in the Individualized Education Plan or 504 plan, academic achievement scores and grades, curriculum-based assessments, statewide and district-wide assessment participation and proficiency, sensory abilities, physical abilities, cognitive disabilities. What methods can be used to gather additional information to support the decision-making process? Trial with materials in specialized formats, formal measures conducted by a psychologist, a reading specialist, an audiologist, a vision teacher, a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, etc. Learning media assessments conducted by a vision specialist. Evaluations. A specialized format of a print-based materials includes exactly the same information as the printed material. The specialized formats does not change any content, only the way in which the content is presented to the student. The specialized formats neither adds nor changes any information. Modified materials may address the same goals, but the content of the materials is modified or changed in some way, usually made less complicated. Selection of formats. To start the format selection process, the team gathers information about the materials used across the curriculum in which the students will participate in. The next step, the team considers the student's skills, needs, preferences, and environment. Next, the team determines which specialized formats will be used for the student. How to acquire AEM. There are 4 common sources for acquiring AEM. 1. The National Instructional Materials Access Center, NIMAC. 2. Accessible Media Producers, AMPS. 3. Publishers via the Access Text Network. 4. Do it yourself. The following is a summary of each source, the type of materials they provide, and a description of who is eligible to receive materials from them. In-depth information about the legal context was provided in the Part 1 session. The National Instructional Materials Access Center, NIMAC, is a repository of textbook files developed in accordance with the National Instructional Materials Accessibility Standard, NIMAS. In order to receive specialized formats created by the NIMAS source files from the NIMAC, a student must 1. Have an individual education program, IEP. That means that the student has undergone an evaluation and is or will be receiving special education services under IDEA. 2. Be certified by a competent authority as having a print disability, as defined by copyright statutes. Not being NIMAC eligible does not eliminate a district's responsibility to provide materials in alternative formats. It just means that the source of a district's not being NIMAC eligible does not eliminate a district's responsibility to provide materials in alternative formats. It limits the sources a district can use, for example, the NIMAC. Accessible media producers or organizations or companies that produce accessible materials in a specialized format, such as Braille, large print, audio, or digital text. To receive materials from AMP's general collection, students must have a qualified print disability. To receive specialized formats from print instructional materials created by the NIMAC files, the students must also be served under IDEA. Bookshare creates and provides files that can be used for students who need materials in a digital, text, or Braille format. Learning Ally creates and provides audiobooks with human narration and text. American Printing House for the Blind, APH, creates and provides materials in large print, Braille, and electronic formats for individuals who are blind or have visual impairments. Publishers can be of assistance with the provision of accessible materials. Upon request, a publisher may be willing to provide a digital file or grant permission for a state or local education agency to copy or scan materials that are not available from another source. When publishers provide these files, it is with the understanding that the use of the materials created from the file will be limited to students certified as having a print disability. This is especially helpful when a student with a disability has a service plan, IG 504, but is not served under IDEA, or when the materials is no longer sold for which no NIMAS file has been created. These materials are called legacy materials. Some publishers also provide digital versions of instructional materials along with printed books. This can be useful for materials that provide the same information as printed books rather than supplementary materials. It is important to be aware that just because the material is in a digital format does not necessarily mean that the materials is accessible to all students. One of the most promising developments we're seeing in the publishers are beginning to provide accessible versions of instructional materials for purchase. Typically, digital formats can be read by a variety of digital readers. There are numerous free and commercial resources for accessible materials. Although these sources may not typically include textbooks, they may be good sources of supplementary materials, some of which are required school reading. Items that are available free of charge are typically those whose copyright has expired and are in the public domain. Some of the following is a selection of sources that provide electronic and audio books. Some texts are available for free and others may be purchased. LibriVox, NetLibrary, Project Gutenberg, Audible.com, online bookstores such as Amazon and Barnes & Noble, Overdrive, Audio Editions, Blackstone Audiobooks. Although specialized formats are increasingly available through accessible media producers and commercial resources, the do-it-yourself method of scanning, copying, and creating materials remains a way to meet the needs of some students for certain materials. For example, teacher-made materials will almost always need to be created in this manner. What supports are needed? The IEP team should determine whether any of the following supports are needed for your student to effectively use and select AIM: technology, training, instructional strategies, support services, and accommodations and/or modifications. The following is a broad summary of supports that may be needed for a student to effectively use AIM. After selecting the specialized format needed and determining how to acquire them, the team will need to decide what types of technology or tools are needed for the student to use AIM. Information about the student, environment, and tasks needed to be completed can be helpful when selecting technology. Educators may need to use various instructional strategies to support students using specialized formats and supporting technologies. When a student first begins using these tools, instruction should include multiple opportunities for the student to understand the purpose, benefits, and outcomes of using the tools. It is helpful to start providing opportunities for the student to use the tools to successfully complete familiar learning tasks, possibly in a familiar environment. Gradually building on early successes and increasing the functional complexity of the tools will enable the student to learn and use the tool for independent mastery for learning goals in a variety of environments. The student's IEP team should work together to ensure that the teachers and staff are coordinating to assist the student in using accessible materials and monitoring the change in the literacy, skills, and access. The student's IEP should describe any support services needed for effective use of various specialized formats and who is responsible for providing them. Different support services may be needed for different formats. For example, a student using Braille may require specialized instruction from a qualified teacher of the visually impaired, and a student with a physical disability may need the support of an occupational or physical therapist. Additional support such as classroom organization and arrangement, equipment management and maintenance, and file acquisition may be needed. The use of AIM may require accommodations to the student's IEP. For example, a student may need preferred seating or additional time to complete tasks due to the time required to use the specialized format. Frequent breaks may be needed to avoid fatigue. Some students may need to provide responses orally rather than in writing. The team should consider any accommodations that may be needed when developing the IEP. The AIM Navigator is a free web-based tool that facilitates the process of decision-making around AIM for an individual student by the IEP or other decision-making teams. The AIM Navigator collects all decisions made by the team and uses that information to create a summary report. The AIM Navigator also includes an optional running to-do list that the team can use as they go through the AIM Navigator to create a list of action items that need to be taken and determine who is responsible for each action. Also based on the student's IEP and accompanying information, the AIM Navigator can direct IEP teams to resources for the acquisition of specialized formats. The AIM Navigator is available on the AIM Center website, http://ame.org/NAVIGAROR/PAGE/.